Hello everyone, my name is Alex Toledo and I'm from London Wildlife Trust, and this is a presentation to introduce you to the Woodland Condition Self-Assessment Tool. This is a project that has lasted now 2 years, is about to end soon in 2025. And the funding comes from the Heritage Lottery Fund through the GLA. But the ones that we have been developing and delivering the project has been London Wildlife Trust, the Conservation Volunteers, and Trees for Cities. First, I would like to introduce me briefly. So I'm the conservation ecologist of London Wildlife Trust. I have a background in research, specifically in bird research, and in London Wildlife Trust I monitor I monitor the surveys in all the reserves that they cycle. So every year they are a little bit different, and I also manage several projects. For instance, I have been managing this one. This woodland condition self-assessment is part of a two-step process. So the first step of the process is going to be using this assessment to get a score, and this score will define the condition of the woodland. This is the very first step. The ideal moment of the year to do it is from mid-March till mid-May, when you have all the ground flora flowered and you can identify the species better. The second step of the process will be using a woodland management toolkit. With this toolkit, you can input the score from the first step of the process, and it will recommend you actions that you can do in your woodland. It is not recommended using the second step without doing the first one, because the first one will give you an idea of the condition and will tell you what aspects are the priorities, which are the best things on your woodland ecologically speaking, the worst things. So it is very important to run the first one before the second one. The woodland condition self-assessment, it is finished. We tweak it, we trial it, and it is very finished. The second step is not finished. At this moment, Alastair, my colleague from the Conservation Volunteers, is running trials for this tool. So if you are interested in participating and seeing how well the tool runs for you and you want to be our guinea pig, please write to him. This is his email. First of all, I would like to ask yourself and see what is your opinion of what a condition assessment is. It may sound something very technical or scientific, but it's actually something that we do in our day-to-day life with a lot of things. So basically, a condition assessment is comparing something with a standard that we consider good. And we do this when we think about beds, tables, or whatever in our day-to-day life. It's just that we don't call it that way, but it's something that we are doing it mentally with everything. If we apply to the woodland, it is something that we can do by ourselves in a very intuitive way. For instance, I would like you to spend a couple of minutes thinking about this picture of a woodland. Just maybe pause the video, think a little about it a little bit, and tell me what do you think about the ecological condition of this woodland. Pause now. And now I will let you know what I think. So in this picture, you can see a lot of erosion and compaction. As you can see, there is here very close in the picture, there is no underground flora, there is no shrubs. This picture was taken after the lockdown. So a lot of people went to walk a lot around their local woodland, so there was a lot of erosion and compaction. So you can see that the path has been widened, and do you see that there are some blocks on the ground trying to delimit the path, but people have walked outside of the paths, so compacting this a lot. If you look a little bit in between the understory, beyond this first erosion, you can see that the shrub layer is very dense. So I can imagine that if you walk inside, there will be very little amount of light reaching the ground. So possibly this is a very dark woodland. These are the two main things when you can look at this picture. I show you another one. Again, pause the video, think a little bit for a couple of minutes and let me know what you think. And again, I can tell you my opinion. So in this case, the first thing that that anyone can think is that it is very, very dark. So you can imagine that there is very little amount of light reaching the ground. And this is because there is a lot of ivy growing on the trunks. If you can see, the shrub layer is very, very dense. But also, if you look at the ground, it is fully covered by ivy. So if you can imagine, if you're a little seed of a tree or a shrub that are trying to germinate and grow, you won't have a chance because the ground is totally covered by ivy, and then there is almost no light reaching the underground. So very difficult. If you pay a little bit more of attention, you can see some invasive species as well, or sorry, not invasive species, but very competitive species. And that is the main thing when you look at this picture. So if you see yourself, you have actually made a condition assessment without having any more technical knowledge of a woodland. And this is, for instance, an example of what I mentally have in my mind when I think of a good woodland. You can see something that you have all the layers. You have a ground layer of vegetation on the ground. There is light reaching the ground, as you can see, but you still have a shrub layer. So you can see that you have some shrubs and you have some trees. And if you look closely, you can see that there are some saplings of trees. So you have the different layers of the vegetation, light reaching the ground. So this is a good example of a good woodland, of a good condition woodland. And if you look closely, you can see that there is a path even going through the picture, and that path is not widened. Actually, you can merely see it, so people are not walking outside of the path and creating a lot of compaction. So this is a good example of a woodland in good condition. Now I would like to talk a little bit about the self-assessment and what is our proposal. First of all, it is a self-assessment. Actually, we changed the name because people thought that this will be some kind of exam and then we will be chasing the people managing the woodlands that are in worse condition or something like this. But no, it's not at all. This is not a competition between the different friend groups, or it's not a competition between woodlands. It's a self-assessment for you, for yourself, for your group to do over the years to see how is the condition of the woodland and to help you with the management. It's a way to self-assess how is your work on the woodland. But we are not going to be chasing anyone or anything. It will be very nice, and we have been trying to collect the data, to collect the results, to see maybe in 5 years or 10 years how is the general condition of our woodlands, and maybe see if there are there is more financial help needed. But in any ways, any competition or anyone is going to be chased based on the results of the self-assessment. An example of how you can use this self-assessment, for instance, year one, this year, imagine that in April you have run the self-assessment and you have got a score of 15. And that's it. In summer, you have met Alastair from the Conservation Volunteers, and he has suggested you some management actions that you can do to improve your woodland. Then autumn and winter arrive, and you do some works on the woodland. This is how a year one in a woodland can look like. Then the following year, you run the self-assessment again and you get a score of 20 because you have been doing works in the woodland. And then the following year, you repeat the same process and you get a score of 25. So every year, because you have been doing works, every time you run the self-assessment is going to improve slightly. And you may think, oh, Alex, I don't think that nature can improve that quickly. I don't think that can get reflected that quickly in the self-assessment, but it really can. We're going to see later on that there are different categories and you can make improvements in a woodland very, very quickly. An example that I give is Camley Street Natural Park. I suggested removing some of the ivy growing on the ground. So there could be more light reaching the ground. And they simply removed the ivy, and suddenly there was a lot of ground flora that just came up. It was in the seed bank of the inside of the ground, but just because there was a layer of ivy, nothing could grow. So as soon as they removed the ivy, even after years and after years and years of having the ivy, the seeds started to germinate. So within the same season, they could see a change. So you can see very quick changes in a woodland after doing some management, and that will be reflected in the self-assessment tool.